Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great time at Salesloft on tour so far. I'm Linda Sue, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Salesloft, and I'll be your host for this track. Welcome to RevTalks Live. If revenue pros are thinking it, we're saying it. In this three-part series, you're going to hear from revenue experts and your peers as they share their insights and best practices from the front lines of revenue. And our goal today is really for you to take some tangible takeaways and learnings back to your role, your organization, and your team. So let's get started. In part one, we're going to talk about our buyers. We know that the B2B buyer journey has changed. Everything from the death of the MQL to buyers being more self-educated and digital first. Well, what does that mean for your team and for you and your role? And what are the implications? Well, to help us answer that question, I'm excited to bring to the stage Christian Kletzel, founder and CEO of UserGems, as well as Randy Littleson, CMO at Salesloft. Welcome to the stage, Randy and Christian.
My name is Randy Littleson. I am head of marketing at Salesloft. I've been here since November. But prior to that, you can probably tell, I've been in the industry a long time, over 30 years in various software companies of various sizes and shapes and that. So glad to be with you. Christian.
Yes, hey everyone, Christian Kletzel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of UserGems. I've been around the block a little bit. I think interestingly, I'm engineer at heart, but now run the company and especially the revenue team. At UserGems, we capture the most valuable buyer signals. That's like my champions changing their job or new hires and promotions at target accounts. And then we help you also automate the next step, like putting them into rhythm, into Salesloft cadence, or notifying the owner on Slack. So the idea is that we help you generate pipeline, accelerate deals, and prevent churn.
All right, so what we want to talk about is, if you think about the root of B2B buying and selling, it's all about human relationships and trust. And our contention is over the last several years, it's gotten a lot harder, right? We've got complex buying processes now that are buying committees and buying teams. There's a lot of self-service, there's digital interactions, there's in-person interactions, and so on. And so that's what we want to double click into a little bit. We hear that a lot from our customers, and that's what we wanted to talk a little bit about as we go through this. So this chart's interesting. It's got a lot of stats from a lot of different sources in that, but they talk a little bit about today's reality in the buying process. And I'll let you scan through these. I'll pick out a couple of them, right? I mean, at the top one here, we talk about 83% of buying research happens away from your vendor and your vendor sites, right? And I think we hear that a lot. There's a lot of research being done that you're not even aware of, that's happening without you being directly engaged. Buyers are 70% of the way through the buying journey before talking to a seller, right? So it's consistent with that research that they're doing. But I think that's also alarming in the fact that they're a long way through their process before they even engage you. So this reality today really forces us to look at the way that we're approaching it in a different fashion, and we should be adapting to it. And the last one here is actually from Christian's organization. Most companies miss 50% of the key buyers in their accounts. So talk to me a little bit more about that statistic. Why is that happening, and what can people do about it?
Yeah, and why is that important? So we all know that there are now more buyers involved than ever before. Like Gartner's statistic at 10 people in an opportunity, usually. And the reason for this is previously it was FOMO, like fear of missing out. I bought every single tool. Now it's FOMO, the fear of messing up, which means people don't want to make a decision or don't want to risk budget from the company. And therefore, we're making sure that more and more people are involved in the buying process. But what we learn is when we connect with prospect or customer CRM and we identify, right, how many people are involved, how many people do you know? We find that more than 50% of key buyers are actually missing in your CRM. And that means you're not in touch with the people. You're not in touch with the people that could potentially say no, that can veto the deal. So what you need to do about this is figuring out who is everyone that can be involved in a deal. They can stop a deal, or they can make a deal happen and make sure that your team, and we're talking full revenue team, this is SDR, AE, but also CSM, that they get in touch with everyone that matters in the organization.
I think that's really important. One of the things I talk about internally with our team is you've got your buyers and your anti-buyers, right? The buyers are the ones usually driving, initiating, and leading a project. A lot of times that's line of business. But I think we're all seeing nowadays that if you don't have IT, finance involved, they may not be driving the project, but they can sure kill it. And I think that speaks to the point. So you talk about, you bring up a good point about the buyer journey and meeting people where they're at and providing value at the right time. So this is also an interesting chart, I think, because in the industry, we've all gotten accustomed to laying out the buying journey in some very linear, very clean, pure-looking picture. But in the reality, the picture looks a lot more like this, right? The engagement zigs and zags. It goes forward, it goes backwards. You're engaging with marketing, you're engaging with sales, you're doing some digital interactions, you're doing some in-person interactions in that. In this historical model of it being very linear, very sequential, where the teams are not working in a orchestrated fashion is really outdated. And so if you think about that reality, what are some of the key moments in that buying journey? And where are the revenue teams failing to capitalize today and engage people the way that they're going about their buying?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to look. We call it B2B, we sell to businesses, but we actually sell to humans and to individuals. So I always really like looking at what is B2C selling doing right that we can also do in B2B. Because ultimately, we're selling to humans. So we look a lot at these people signals, specifically around anything that happens in my account can influence my deal or my churn or my customer. As an example, very often, if I have my target account, I have new buyers, new decision makers joining that account, the first thing they do is evaluate what's the tech stack that I have, what's the tech stack that I need. So it's very much observing all the signals that are going on there. Same is true if someone joins my target account and they previously used my product. That's like Christmas for me. I want to reach out, I want to turn them into a customer. But the opposite is also true, and that's a very dangerous signal, is what if my buyer leaves from a customer account? We're learning that it increases churn risk by about 70%. It's a real risk because ultimately it means someone else is making the decision about renewing my product or not. And similarly, this could be my champion leaving. This could be a new decision maker joining. It's now, if there's a new CMO there, CRO, they're making the decision. It's in their job description to look into which tools do I need and which tools do I not need. What's the tech stack I need? And oftentimes, the first month they listen, the second they think, and the third one they make decisions. And we need to make sure that we are part of this conversation within the 3 months. And I'm always quoting Hamilton on this, be in the room where it happens. We cannot always be in the room ourselves, obviously, but we can make sure that we are in there either directly by having talked to the decision maker or by having influenced the decision maker through someone that we talked to.
Yep.
And Randy, for you now, if we look at this buying journey, it's more complicated than ever. So how is this impacting teams? And how can we actually, how can they deliver on these expectations?
I think it's huge in terms of the impact. Like I said, I see so many organizations that see all these facts in front of them about the way the buying process has changed, the way this picture is not really an accurate depiction of that, but yet people aren't changing in the way they behave. So one, I think AI can be a huge asset here in terms of targeting, in terms of prioritizing, in terms of personalization at scale, and in terms of automation. Right? Because fundamentally what we want to be able to do is meet people in the journey, understand which persona we're trying to engage with, understand what their needs are, and then engage them in a value-added way. And so I think AI can be really, really valuable. You heard it earlier too. I think embedding that AI into the workflow and the way that we operate is really important. I think that's true of both sales and marketing. Because at the end of the day, we want both teams engaging throughout the process, which I think is also very important, is that it's about orchestration, right? We have marketing, we have sales development, we have customer service, and depending where your customer is in the process, all of those teams could be engaging at one point or another, and you want to be orchestrated so that you're doing it in a coordinated fashion in that. And so it's really about understanding where the buyer is, understanding what their interest is, understanding which personas that you're dealing with, and acting in a very personalized, value-added way. And I think if we do that, then we're adding a lot of value to the conversation, and we're engaging buyers in the way that they like to buy and delivering value from the entire revenue team.
Yeah.
So,
like what we heard before, I think is super important when we talk about AI. Like the buying experience matters, and I think the Salesloft team focuses a lot on human in the loop, like preparing a lot of information, making sure I have really good communication, but always there being a human involved to make sure, like, it's about building the trust, human to human. So at the end, it should be the human that reviews, that sends the message, to make sure it's the right content.
Yep. So the last chart that we'll show here talks a little bit about the buying experience and how important that is, right? There's been a lot of research done, and I'm sure you've seen it published around just how important the experience is in the buying process. In many cases, it's more important than the product or the service that you're offering. And what this shows is the trend lines of the way people perceive the experience at various stages in the process. There's two bits of really bad news here, right? One, the scores aren't very good. And two, they've gotten worse. So the buyer's perspective of what that experience is actually gotten worse. And I think part of that goes all the way back to what we opened the conversation with, right? The process has gotten more complex for both the buyers and the sellers. There's more people involved. There's more things to consider in that purchasing decision. And so it really has led to a deteriorating situation on a really important metric that determines whether or not you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah. I think we've heard a lot about what Salesloft, the new product that you're launching. So what is Salesloft doing about this?
Yep. So a couple things. We actually discussed earlier in that this notion of aligning sales and marketing and even the customer service team, we really take seriously internally and what we're trying to promote with the products. We believe that the old model of this sort of linear sequential handoff is just completely outdated and not going to work. So that's step number one. I think the second thing is we're trying to very aggressively act based on signals, right? And understand better what is the buyer trying to do so that we can respond appropriately. And I hope you're not surprised by the fact that everything you heard in the product is exactly what we're trying to do internally as well. And so we're trying to leverage our own technology, but also take advantage of that technology to understand where are people at in the process, what are the signals in that. And then automatically route people into the cadences. So if we can act on those signals, we can be more timely and more responsive and give people a better experience. We can have a better understanding of them so we engage more thoughtfully and added value so that we're not just cold responding to people without an understanding of that. And then the last thing, of course, that you heard us talk about is, as a marketer, I'm selfishly incredibly excited about the acquisition of Drift because it not only allows a great experience on the website, and you heard some of the latest innovations there, but we're excited about tying that directly into Rhythm as well so that, the holy grail for anybody in marketing is as we start to engage buyers early in the process, we start uncovering and understanding what their interest is and everything else. We want the sellers to engage appropriately at the right time in the cycle. And so that integration is actually going to be able to help us be able to do that. And those are some of the things that we're doing very, very appropriately tied to what we're doing in our product as well.
Yeah. I actually think it helps the marketing and sales. Like, they're not always friends in an organization. And I think one of the reasons is that marketing actually produces so many signals and they end up in your sales force. But it's super difficult for sales reps to identify all the signals that's being presented, how to act on them, making sure that actually something happens. So marketing is disappointed that they're doing so much and people don't action it. Sales reps actually don't see it or find it very difficult to act upon.
And it works the opposite direction as well, right? So we had the opportunity, you heard David mention that we had an opportunity earlier today. We met with Seth Mars at Forrester, and one of the things he was talking about is if you're not sharing in both directions information between sales and marketing, you are suboptimal on both teams' ability to execute, right? Marketing cannot engage. I use the example internally, right? If you've got an opportunity at stage 4, marketing's job's not done. We should be engaging the rest of the buying committee.
Absolutely.
Right? And we should be adding value to help them get comfortable with that they need to answer in order to continue to move along in the buying process. So that ability to share signals and insights and intent and information between both groups is essential.
Yeah, and it's really what signal-based go-to-market is about. Like we've learned that if nobody actions on a signal, it's a useless signal. So it's all really about making sure if something important happens, there is an answer and an action to it from the sales team or the marketing team.
So fundamentally what we're talking about is whether you're trying to build new business, reduce churn or whatever, it's about these timed moments, right? When you engage people at the right time with value-added information. What are you guys doing at UserGems relative to that?
Yeah, once again, it comes back to any of the people signals that we can detect. I think it's really interesting. We're huge on these signals. Like we track when anyone new is joining our customer accounts or target accounts. We track when anyone is leaving, like a buyer is leaving our customer accounts. And it's still for us, even for us, difficult to act on it at scale. Like we look into, I want to know, one example is for all my customer accounts, I want to know every new decision maker that joins, and I want to get in touch with them. They should know about, hey, you're using UserGems, here's what we do for you. Let's jump on a call, happy to identify like how this matters for you. And even we have a really bad outreach rate for these because we're not making sure that we didn't have an automation on it, and now we do. So it's really all about adding an automation, using the signals for my broader account identification, but then figuring out who's joining and leaving my accounts.
Yep, exactly. Well, Christian, thank you very much. We're up on our time. Happy to talk to more of you as we get to the reception later. Otherwise, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll pass it back to Linda.